everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Jamella Swift, your New York City real estate agent. And I've been thinking about buyers and how the process of purchasing real estate in New York City can be quite intimidating, especially if you're choosing to buy a house. And I've been in the game. Okay, so when I say the game, I refer to the real estate industry as the game. I've been in the game for 16 years now, and I've held a lot of hands throughout the process. I also am a homeowner, so I know exactly what it's like to feel that trepidation when you're selecting what could be the largest purchase of your life. So I figured it would be great to have a video to discuss with buyers the home buying process. So let's get started. And just a quick disclaimer, if you hear music playing in the background, it's because my neighbors are jamming to some really good tunes. Okay, so now you decided that you want to purchase a home. And the first thing you do is come to me, your New York real estate agent, and you say, okay, Jamella, I'd like to purchase property. What do I do? The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what is it? Well, the very first thing I'm going to ask you is, have you been pre-approved? No, I have not been pre-approved. Okay, now let's stop for a second. I am going to now email to you 3 mortgage lenders that I've worked with in the past. They are members of my team. I trust them to get the job done. You're going to go to them. You're going to get your pre-approval so that we know what your buying power is. All right? Once you get that pre-approval letter, they should turn it around roughly in 3 days. They're going to ask you about your financials, how long you've been employed by your current job, how much money do you have to put down, do you have at least 10 or 20%? If you have less than 20% to put down, then you're going to be subject to what is called PMI, private mortgage insurance. So which will increase your monthly payments somewhat. Okay. Now, once you have that pre-approval, come back to me and then we'll get started. So I'm going to need to know the following. What is it that you want to purchase? You want to purchase an apartment or a house? If it's an apartment, do you want a co-op or a condo? If you're open to a co-op, now pause. For those of you who are outside of New York, most of what I'm suggesting could be applicable to your search as well, but keep in mind that New York real estate is somewhat of an anomaly. It's very complicated here. Buyers are strongly advised to hire attorneys, whereas if you're purchasing something in South Kakalaka, you may not need an attorney. But here in New York, you need an attorney because it's extremely complicated. So let's get back to co-ops. The difference between co-ops and condos. A co-op is a share of a corporation. So just like if you were to purchase shares of Netflix, it's kind of like your apartment is a share of that entire corporation, okay? A co-op is not real property. It is a share of a corporation. So when you close, you don't get a deed, you get a stock certificate, okay? Then there's a condo, a condominium. A condominium is real property in that it's an apartment that you are purchasing, and when you close, you will receive a deed, just as if you were to purchase a townhouse or a house, a building. You'll get a deed as well with a condo. Condos are valued higher than co-ops. Well, of course, it's contingent on the neighborhood that you're purchasing in, because they are considered real property, they are priced higher. And the process with purchasing a condo, truth be told, is not as complicated as it is when you purchase a co-op. With the co-op, more than likely, you will be subject to board approval, where the board gets to vet your financials, and then they'll meet you and deem whether or not they would or they would not like for you to live in their building. They do not have to give you a reason if they do decline you. And it is very frustrating. But the reason why a lot of people do opt to purchase a co-op is primarily because of the location of that apartment, or if it's just a fabulous apartment, you know? And then, like I said, it's more than likely going to be priced less than a condo in that same neighborhood. Okay, now let's talk about townhouses. Brownstones, houses, detached homes, buildings, whatever it is. Let's say, okay, Jamella, I want an actual building to purchase. Now, with a townhouse, you have several options. You can get a single family house, or you can get a multifamily. And depending on your purchasing status, like let's say if you're a first-time home buyer, that's going to determine how much the bank is going to be willing to lend to you. How much you can put down will also determine that as well. When you're purchasing an actual property, you can put down as low as 3.5%, which is a first-time home buyers program, FHA loan. I strongly advise people, if they can, to put down as much as possible, because it makes you a little bit more competitive, just in case if someone else comes and submits an offer on that same property. If I am the seller's agent and I'm with the seller and we're vetting both offers, let's say offer A is only putting down 5% and offer B is putting down 25%, as the listing agent, if I were the person who listed that property and I'm working with the seller, I would go with the person who's putting down a stronger down payment, because it increases the likelihood of them securing a commitment letter, because the bank will see them as less of a risk versus someone who's only put down 5%. It's easier for them to walk away from $20,000 versus $120,000. I personally would not walk away from $20,000. I would not. But there are some people who do. It's New York real estate, folks. Okay, so we have it established. You have your pre-approval letter. You tell me, Jamella, I want to purchase a condominium. And then from there, I'll take a lot of notes. I am a copious note taker because I really don't like to waste time. I don't want to waste your time. I want to hone in and get you exactly what you tell me you want. And then there are often times that I may sneak in another listing that you may like, you know? Okay, so then I'm going to ask you, how many bedrooms do you need? How many apartments do you ideally, okay, if you're renting a townhouse. If you're purchasing a townhouse, how many how many apartments would you want in that said property? So if you tell me if it's a townhouse, I'm open to a 2 or 3 family, I'll say cool. Now, one of the things I always ask my buyers, if you're going to purchase a multifamily home, can you afford that home without the tenants? Those tenants decide to curse you out one day and say, I'm not paying you a nickel. Can you still pay the mortgage? If the answer is no, we may want to re-strategize the search. Meaning that, let's say if you get approved for 1.2 million, and that 1.2 million is heavily contingent upon those tenants paying their monthly rent, we may want to scale it back a little bit and look at properties that are in the 900 range, just so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable paying that monthly nut, okay? Being house poor is not fun. I've been there. It's not cute at all. So you want to walk into this feeling as confident as possible, because the boiler breaks down in January, the roof caves in April, and you don't want all of your money tied up in the house. You want to be able to have enough money to make the necessary repairs. You want to be able to have enough money to be able to go on a trip every now and then. You do not want to be house poor. Okay, so now let's pause. I know I veered off. Let's go back. You told me you want to get a condominium. Why is she talking about townhouses? Okay, I'm just trying to cover everything, folks. Okay, so now, Jamella, I want to purchase a condo. Okay, cool. Tell me, what neighborhoods would you like to be in? What trains do you need to be near? Do you have any pets? Now, asking about pets is very important, because a lot of New Yorkers have pets. And if you tell me, yes, I have a Great Dane, that's going to rule out a lot of buildings. So I'm going to have to search for buildings that do permit dogs that are over 50 pounds, all right? But you know what, Jamella? I don't like pets. I'm not getting a pet. Let's not even worry about that. Cool. We won't think about buildings that require pets. But you may say, I absolutely must have a washer and dryer in the apartment. I'm going to make a mental note of that, because if there are a lot of condo buildings that don't have washer dryers in the apartment, so we're going to stay away from those, because I don't like wasting time. I don't want to waste your time. Okay, so we have that down pat. Now, as I'm taking my copious notes, I'm going to start to send you listings. I'm also going to send you, if you haven't found them already, at least 2 attorneys to have on hand. These are super women that I work with, that I refer a lot of business to, that I trust, that I know that are going to get the job done. And the reason why I'm going to give you this information early in the process is because I want you to have all of your ammunition ready. Let's go in with our guns cocked, ready to find this apartment. Because let's say we walk into the 15th condo apartment. You see it, you fall in love with it, you're ready to make an offer. We're going to want to submit that offer as soon as possible. Meaning that we cannot take time to pause, to pump our brakes so you can go and look for an attorney, okay? Because if you do that, you run the risk of someone else coming in and swooping down and taking your apartment, because your guns were not cocked. So we want to make sure the guns are cocked. And let's say if you don't want to go with the attorneys that I've referred to you, that's fine. You have to go with who you feel comfortable working with. But I ask all of my customers to make sure that that attorney is a real estate attorney. And the reason being is we don't want to have you working with an attorney who does not specialize in real estate, especially New York City real estate. A lot of attorneys botch deals. They screw up deals all the time. And, searching for an apartment, it can be a lengthy, tedious, draining process for you, especially if you've been outbid or, something falls through. I don't know. A lot of times, they say don't get emotionally invested in an apartment or a house. But truth be told, that's not easy. It's always easier said than done, because when you walk into that apartment or you walk into that house, you start fantasizing about it. Oh, I can see myself living there, having parties, having cookouts. You start arranging the furniture, and you all of a sudden just start to fall in love with the place. And so with that, that's why you have to have your guns cocked, because you don't want to do something that's going to delay us submitting an offer, because you have an attorney that doesn't have it together, that has to flip through pages and research how to do real estate law, you know. And if your cousin refers you to their brother's sister's husband, just make sure that they know what they're doing. Make sure that they are indeed a real estate attorney licensed in the state of New York. Cool. So you have your pre-approval. You've told me your criteria. You have your attorney lined up just so that they're ready for when it's time for us to submit the offer. Now, the next step would be you and I are going to get together and we're going to commence the search, the fun part, right? So we're going to see so many apartments or townhouses, if that's what you choose to purchase, in New York City. We're going to narrow it down to Brooklyn or Manhattan. Those are the neighborhoods that I work in. We're going to narrow it down even further to your specific favorite neighborhoods. I'm going to send you listings. And I also tell my customers, if you see something that you want me to inquire about, send it to me. I'll call, I'll schedule the appointment, we'll go out, we'll take a look at it, right? Oh, wait, I forgot the disclosures. Okay. While you're getting the pre-approval, I'm also going to send you several disclosures that you'll need to sign. One is an agency disclosure form that will elucidate my role in the transaction as your agent. So if you hired me to come and represent you in the transaction, I will be considered the buyer's agent. So you'll have to sign a disclosure that acknowledges that you understand my role in the transaction is my fiduciary duties are to you as the buyer's agent. Now, if you were a seller, I will give the seller that same agency disclosure form, but I'll be operating as the seller's agent. And there are times where the roles can shift a bit because the buyer may come to the open house and not have representation from another broker. And that listing agent who's representing the seller, if you say, you know, I don't have an agent, I'm fine with working with you, then that said agent will have what is called dual agency, where their fiduciary duties are both to you and the seller. So you'll have that agency disclosure form presented to you at first meeting. You'll sign it and you'll have a clear understanding what that agent's role is in the transaction that you enter into. It's not a contract. It doesn't mean that you are bound to work with them. There's no exclusivity, but it's just an acknowledgement so that you know you have been clearly informed on the agent's role. So that's the agency disclosure form. That's one. Two, there's also fair housing disclosures. Now, this was just recently mandated by the state of New York, is to let the purchaser, the seller, or the renter know their rights, just in case if there are any type of discriminatory behavior practiced by agents or an attorney or even a seller or landlord. So I will present to you a fair housing disclosure anti-discrimination form to sign. And I'll also email to you a form which just explains your rights, what to do if you feel like you're being discriminated, and so that you'll know who to call in New York. More than likely, I believe it's the Department of State. Okay, so that's your second disclosure. The third disclosure is COVID disclosures. So that is to pretty much give the seller, or
it's 6 o'clock.
That's my laptop. It's the COVID disclosure. It's just to inform everyone that you have not been exposed by COVID within the past 14 days. So those are the 3 disclosures that you'll be presented either by myself or another agent in the state of New York. So now you have your pre-approval, you've signed your disclosures, you have your attorneys lined up, you're working with me, hopefully, or another agent. And then also, one of the things, like let's say if you're not working with me, you'll want to get an idea of what the closing costs are going to be. I always like to prepare my buyers and also my sellers. I like for them to know exactly what they'll be paying. So I give a list of closing costs when we first meet, just so you are kept abreast of everything, where your coins are going. Okay, I don't like any surprises when it comes to my money, not at all. I want to know exactly what I'm getting into, and I really like to set my sellers or my buyers up to win. Okay, so I'll present to you also a list of closing costs. So now, I digress. Let's go back to, we're starting our search. I'm going to send you emails with several listings to consider. You're going to filter them out and say, oh, I love this one listing on Madison Street. Let's go see that. Okay, we'll line up a day and we'll start knocking them all out. We'll go and we'll look at the properties, we'll kick the tires, we'll vet the financials, etc. And then it may sometimes, depending on you, it may take you, some buyers, they walk into a place, they fall in love with it. They don't need to see that much more. Then there are other buyers that want to just feel even more informed before they make a decision. So they'll need to see at least a good 5 to 10. With some buyers, it may take them years, but yeah, we'll see as many apartments or houses as possible. And throughout the process, I'll give you my opinion. A lot of the times my customers, they'll say to me, Jamella, what do you think? I don't like this. Look, I'm a straight shooter. I tell people, the pros and cons on every property that we go to. And so I have no reason to lie to you and say, to tell you something, to get something that I don't think is in your best interest, So if you ask for my opinion, I'm going to tell you. And then also I tell my customers, if we walk into a place and instantly that you don't like it, you're not hurting my feelings, you're not hurting the listing agent's feelings, let's go. Let's move on to the next one, okay? So we're going throughout Brooklyn or Manhattan. I have a car. We can scoot back and forth between the boroughs if you're interested in looking at something at Murray Hill or in Park Slope. And, I just try to educate you as much on not only the apartment or the townhouse, but the neighborhood as well, because you want to feel fully educated on that neighborhood. I always suggest to people after we leave, go walk around, get a feel of the neighborhood, get a feel of who lives there, get a feel of what type of amenities are offered there. Can you see yourself living there? This is an expensive purchase. So you want to feel very sure when it comes time to sign the contract. You want to be absolutely certain that you are making the right decision in selecting this as your next home. Okay. So now we've narrowed down our search. Sometimes you may feel the need to go back for a second time. You may want to bring your mother, you may want to bring your boyfriend or your husband or your sister to come and see the property with you. And then we'll go back for a second time. We'll submit the offer. Okay. Now, when we submit the offer, I will give to you an offer form. You have to fill it out. You have to give the seller and the seller's agent an idea of what your financials are. And the reasons why they'll want to see that is because they want to see the likelihood of you getting that loan. We don't want to go into contract, which would take roughly, I would say 30 to 45 days that we'll be in contract before we close. So we don't want to invest all of that time only for us to turn up short and you not to get that commitment letter. So you're going to fill out the offer form. I will help you with it as much as possible. And then once you return the offer form to me, we'll take that plus your pre-approval, and then I will present it to the listing agent. I'm submitting this offer on behalf of X, my client. He or she would like to put down 20%. And also, my customer or my client is requesting a mortgage contingency. You definitely want to have that because it protects you in the event that you do not get that commitment letter. Now, if your agent neglects to do that, it's very likely that you can lose your contract deposit, or you're going to have to come up with the hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s via cash. So if you're not able to make a cash purchase, you definitely want to have that language inserted into the offer form. This is contingent upon you having a mortgage contingency. You also want to have a funding contingency, which to my knowledge, a funding contingency is to make sure that if the bank decides, even after they've issued your commitment letter, they could decide, you know what, we're not going to fund this loan. So I've heard about this in the era of COVID, where some banks have walked away from deals at the last hour. And that buyer is on the hook for that loan amount, it increases the likelihood of them losing their deposit if they don't have that funding contingency. So you want to have the mortgage contingency, one, you want to have the funding contingency, and also you want to have an inspection. Now, if it is a huge building, let's say if it's a co-op building with 150 units in there, you may not necessarily have to have an inspection for the entire building. And I say that because your attorney is going to vet the financials for the building. They're also going to look at the minutes for the building. And in the minutes, it will be a detailed log on what was and what has and has not been done in that apartment building. Now, this applies to both the co-op and the condo. If it's a condominium building, and let's say it's a boutique building, or even a co-op building and it's a boutique building, I strongly suggest that you do have an inspection. The inspector, I have several inspectors that I can refer to you. They'll come, we'll be present, and they're going to run all of the faucets just to see what the water pressure is like. They're going to turn on the air conditioners, the stoves, the appliances, the washer dryer, the heating system, the HVAC system. Everything is going to be vetted by that inspector. They're going to look at the hot water tank, the mechanicals, everything. They're going to test all of the light fixtures, the outlets, and let you know what is and what is not working. And you want to do this in tandem with, okay, so you have the inspection after your offer is accepted. So there's two things that are going to be happening. I hope you guys are following me. Your offer is accepted. The agent and I, the listing agent and I, are going to send out a deal sheet with the terms to the two attorneys. The terms are going to have your information, the seller's information, the contract price, how much you're putting down, mortgage contingency, funding contingency, contingent upon an inspection report. So while that's going out, I will start to schedule, I will refer to you inspectors so that you can reach out to, you can hire an inspector, reach out to them, tell me, okay, Jamella, they can come on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Then I will schedule the inspection with the listing agent. You, me, the listing agent, and the inspector. We will be present at the inspection. This is for a co-op, this is for a condo, and this is also for a townhouse. I strongly suggest that you are there because that inspector is going to go over every item that needs to be addressed. There's certain things that they're going to show you how to operate, especially if you are a newbie in this. You definitely want to be there so that you know exactly what you're getting into. Okay, so the deal sheet has gone out to the two attorneys who are now preparing the contract. The contract is going to be sent by the seller's attorney to the buyer's attorney. The buyer's attorney should take really no longer than 3 days to look at the contract and prepare you to come into their office, or you can go over everything via Zoom or over the phone. They're going to prepare the contract to be presented to you so that you can fully understand what you are about to sign. Now, while your attorney is reading the contract, on the other hand, we're going to get the inspection done. You're going to take that inspection report. You're going to give it to your attorney with the list of items that need to be addressed. Now, why do you do the inspection before you sign the contract? Good question. You want to have as much leverage as possible because once you sign that contract, you don't want to come back and say, oh, wait a minute, I need to hire an inspector. No. You want to present anything that needs to be repaired before you close. You need a new hot water tank. You want to have that all written up in the contract as a writer so that the seller could say, yes, I will repair that hot water tank, or no, I won't. And then that way, you as the buyer can decide if you do or do not want to proceed. If the seller says, you know what, sorry, no, I'm not, it's being sold as is, I'm not repairing anything, okay? So let's say we're in agreement, the seller decides to give you a new hot water tank. That's going to be written up in a writer, like I said. Your attorney is going to make an appointment with you. They're going to go over all of the items in the contract. You are going to acknowledge the contract by signing it, and then you're also going to present a good faith deposit. Now, let's say if you are purchasing this property with 10% down. Now, pause for a minute. With condos, you can pretty much get away with 5 to 10% or more. With co-ops, most co-ops dictate the amount that they want. So the majority of co-ops require at least 20% down, definitely in Manhattan. In Brooklyn, you might have some buildings that will permit a 10% down payment. You might. But for the most part, they usually want at least 20% down. So your attorney is going to go over all of that with you. But when you sign the contract and your attorney returns it to the seller's attorney, they're not going to give them a check for 20%. They're going to give them the good faith deposit. Usually it's no more than 10%. Okay, so let's say you do want to put down 20%. When you sign the contract, you're only going to give 10%. but you just come up with the balance of that 10% by the time we close. Are you following me? I hope so. Okay. So now you've signed the contract, you've wired your down payment to your attorney. He or she is going to return that contract to the seller's attorney. They're going to give that good faith deposit to the seller's attorney, who now has to put that money into an escrow account. Attorneys cannot deposit down payments into their personal accounts because it will be considered commingling. No, it has to go in, absolutely must go into an escrow account. So now the seller is going to come in or sign digitally the contract. We have a fully executed contract. We are now in contract. Congratulations, okay? But let's not rest too soon because we still have work to do. Once you have that fully executed contract, a copy of that is now, we're going to pass the baton to your lender. That contract is now going to your mortgage lender because they are picking up at phase 2 of the process. They are now going to start, they're going to hire the appraiser. The bank is going to hire the appraiser. That mortgage lender cannot interact personally with the appraiser because they don't want any biases, because they have a personal interest in seeing that the loan is approved. So it's been required by law that mortgage lenders or mortgage representatives cannot interact with the appraiser. So your mortgage lender has a copy of the contract. They're going to start you on the mortgage application. And they're also going to schedule, the bank is going to schedule the appraisal. That usually takes roughly a week, maybe a week and a half. It shouldn't take longer than a week and a half. Okay, while the appraisal is being scheduled, you're going to have to start giving all of your financials over to the bank. Trust me when I say it's a very tedious process, but in the long run, it's very much worth it. It is so worth it. Having a home and purchasing a home and achieving that goal that you set out to do, it's quite rewarding, especially when it's a home that you really love. I've been in my home for 20 years. 20 years this year, I celebrated. And I had a very difficult process. Oh my God, it took forever, okay? But in the long run, I'm so glad I did it. I love my house. I'm in love with my house, and I'm an artist, so I get to decorate it exactly how I want. So yeah, it's even though they're going to ask you for everything, your tax returns, your bank statements, your pay stubs, you're going to have to verify your employment, not once, but twice. How long have you been at your job? It's quite invasive. So you have to be patient and you have to keep your eyes on the prize. So now, while you're in the midst of doing all of that, the listing agent is going to provide access to the appraiser. They're going to come in and evaluate the property and assign a value to it. So what they'll do, the appraiser is going to look at comparable sales in that neighborhood within the mile radius of exact townhouses that are in a similar square footage range or similar condominiums or co-ops that are in a comparable size as the one you're most interested in. And then they'll look at least 3 to 5 comparables, maybe a little bit more. and determine what the value is of the property that you're purchasing. So then you'll get an appraisal report, and just to make sure that what you're purchasing is worth what it's been priced at and what your contract price is. Now, let's say your contract price is $800,000, right? And the appraisal comes in at $740,000. You are going to have to make the decision of, are you going to come up with the difference? Because the bank is not going to lend you more than what it has appraised for. So you're either going to have to come up with the difference out of pocket, or we're going to have to renegotiate the price of that property. But let's say the property does appraise at 800. Phew, we passed that hurdle, okay? So now, your contract, you have a fully executed contract, you are at, your property has appraised, thank goodness. You're turning in all of the financial statements to your lender. There is a point when your attorney is going to have to run what is called title. They're going to have to conduct a title search, which it details, it's a history of all of the previous owners of that apartment or property. And the reason why you want to do that is when you purchase a property, you want to make sure that the descendants, the sister of the seller from 30 years ago wasn't cheated out of the sale. You want to make sure that there is a legitimate track record of the sale of this property, so that no one can come to you and say that you stole this property. You know, you just want to make sure that your attorney also runs title and not the seller's attorney. You want to make sure your attorney does it. You'll get a copy of the title search results, and also you'll get title insurance, just in case if someone comes out the blue after you close and says, you stole this property. You want to make sure that you have all of the receipts. Always keep your receipts, people. Okay, so you're in the mortgage contract process. No, you're in contract. You're in the mortgage application process. The appraisal is done. Your attorney is ordering title. Okay, we're going to pause again. Now, like I said, you have a co-op, you have a condo, and then you have a townhouse. If you opted to purchase a co-op, you and I are going to be preparing a board application. And I will tell you, this is when I love it, when buyers tell me that they don't want co-ops, because it's so complicated. It's very grueling. They're going to ask you also, in addition to the bank, you're giving the bank your firstborn son, you're giving the co-op your firstborn daughter, okay? They're asking you everything, and we have to account for your finances down to the penny. So whatever debt you have, they're gonna wanna see it. If you own a house, they're gonna wanna see it. And you can't lie, because it's gonna come up on your credit report, because they are going to run your credit, okay? It's a frustrating process. Me being the agent that I am very anal when it comes to doing a co-op board application, because like I said a few minutes ago, I don't like wasting time. I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want us to go through this process only for you to be denied. And because I'm so anal about it, I have a very good track record with getting co-op board approvals, okay? When selecting an agent, you wanna make sure that they are very thorough if you're going down that route of purchasing a co-op. You don't want a lazy agent. You do not want a lazy agent, Because if they are lazy, they're going to overlook things. They're going to submit a board package that's a hot mess, and you're going to get declined. It's that simple. You want someone who, like myself, who's going to dot those I's, cross those T's, look at it, and look at it again. It's a painful process. You're going to say, Jamella, you are a pain in my ass with this. Why do we need to do this? And I'm going to say, trust me, you're going to love me when this is done. Because you do not want to get declined after you've given them your firstborn son and your firstborn daughter. Okay, I digress. So once so the bank has their baton, they have you filling out the board application. Your attorney has run title. The bank has you completing the bank application. Your attorney has run title. You and I are working on the board application. We finished it up. It's tight. You've looked at it. I've looked at it. You've looked at it. I've looked at it. It's on point. We'll submit it to the management company, who will then also vet it, who will then pass it on to the board, who will then invite you to a board interview. Okay. And I'm going to then prepare you for that board interview. Now, let me tell you, when it's time for your board application, when it's time for your board interview, once you step foot into that building, okay, I'm thinking pre-COVID. Now, you may have a board, more than likely you're going to have a board interview via Zoom. But let's say the world starts to become normal again. People start to see each other in the flesh. You can smell what kind of perfume the person is wearing in front of you, right? Let's say that you've been invited to this board interview. You step foot into that building. I'm telling you, you better smile, and smile at everybody, from the super to the doorman to the old lady who's going out to walk her dog. Smile, hello, good evening. Lovely weather we're having, right? Yes, it is lovely. Oh, what a beautiful building. I love this building. It's so nice. You smile. You be your best self. You come business casual. You look presentable. Iron your clothes. Look presentable, people. And this should, listen, people. This should go without saying. But sometimes people take this for granted. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, let me share a story with you. Okay. I know a lot of real estate agents, my colleagues, and one posted that they had a board interview lined up for the buyer. This buyer stepped foot into the building, decided they weren't going to say hello when somebody said hello to them. Turns out that person that said hello to this buyer and the buyer ignored, it turns out that that person was on the board. Guess who was declined? Now think about that. How painful is it to say hello? Hello, how are you? Nice weather. Yeah, it is nice. Don't complain. The last thing you want to do is complain. Even if you hate hot weather, you do not complain. Because they're looking at you and they're sizing you up and trying to figure out if they want you living in their building. So like I said, the second you step foot into that building, smiles, everyone, smiles. Okay, but I digress. So you're going to the board interview. You're only answering the questions that you are asked. Do not volunteer anything. Don't volunteer anything. Just tell them what they ask you. That's it. That's it. But you also don't want to lie. If you tell them that the apartment is only for you, but you know in the back of your mind that it's for you and your man, and your man's going to be living there, and you did not disclose that information, guess what? You may be subject to a lawsuit. You may be subjecting your agent to a lawsuit. You have to disclose whoever is living in the apartment. So there's a difference between volunteering information and lying too, you know. There have been instances in apartments that I've sold where I've heard, you know, that somebody else moved into that co-op building and didn't tell them that X, Y, and Z was coming with them too. That's not a pretty picture. So you have to be truthful, because you don't want to have any beef with the people that you're going to be living with. You don't want that. Okay, so where was I? Now, let's say everything works out. They love you, you love them. You've been approved. Yay, congratulations. Phew, we did it. You've been approved for your board application. Now, you got your board application approval. The next thing we're waiting for is the commitment letter. Okay, so this applies, let's go back to condos and townhouse. You people who want a townhouse or a condo, you can tune back in. Now you want that commitment letter. You got the commitment letter. We now can, and also the title insurance has come in. We now can schedule the closing. Wait a minute, let's pause. Let's go back to the co-op people. If you're a co-op purchaser, your attorney does not, if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying this. And if you're a real estate agent watching this, don't come for me if I'm wrong, okay? Your attorney, if you're purchasing a co-op, they don't do a title search. Let me get back to you on that. I don't believe so. Okay. But one thing that they do give, the mortgage lender gives the management company, this is for the co-op people, they'll give you what is called an Aztec agreement. It's a recognition agreement, which there are 3 original copies. That's for you, the management company or the co-op board, and also the bank, that states that the bank is first. The bank is paid first over the co-op board and their maintenance and everything. The bank is first and foremost. Okay, so you get that recognition agreement, you sign it, and like I said, it's original copies. So you got the recognition agreement out of the way. This is after you get your board approval. Now we've got this commitment letter. Hooray! We can schedule the closing. Yes! Okay, the title is cleared. Let's schedule the closing. The long-awaited date. Now it's time to go back into the apartment or the house. We're going to do what is called a final walkthrough. Now this is when we go back to see that the seller, if any items were needing to be addressed, like remember the seller said that they were going to give you a new hot water tank. We want to go back and make sure that they kept their word and did it. We want to make sure that everything is in working order. And honestly, listen, I tell my customers all the time, you want to schedule that final walkthrough either the day of the closing or the day before the closing. I wouldn't do it a few days before the closing, because guess what? Let's say if you have your closing is on Friday and you schedule that walkthrough on Tuesday, and from Tuesday to Friday, anything can happen, anything. Somebody could come in and steal the refrigerator, okay? And in New York City, anything is possible. So the interim time, anything can happen. So by the time you close, if you haven't stepped foot into that apartment between Tuesday and that closing, and you come, you're happy, you're excited, you walk into the apartment and discover that the refrigerator is gone, guess what? It's on you. So that's why I say let's schedule the walkthrough either 24 hours before the closing or the morning of the closing. This is to protect your neck, you know? And then also we want to give the seller just okay, we'll go in to the final walkthrough. And let's say something still needs to be addressed. That will give the seller a little bit more time to fix that outlet or that hot water tank, whatever, you know. So we've gone through the walkthrough. We run the water again. We pretty much went over everything that's on the inspector's report. And everything is working fine. All right, we're there. Now it's time to go to the closing. You are gonna sign and sign and sign what feels like thousands of pages. But like I said, it's worth it because you're accomplishing this goal of home ownership, the American dream. And your attorney is going to go over everything with you. This goes to this person. This goes to that person. This check is for this person. This check is for the brokers. And then finally, you get the keys. And I give you a big hug and I congratulate you. And then I ask you to invite me to the housewarming. And then that's it. We've closed. And you are now a home owner. So, if any of you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. If you need something clarified, I'd be more than happy to do it. And always remember me when it comes time, if your cousin wants to purchase in Brooklyn or Manhattan, please refer them to me. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to work with your cousin. If your aunt is selling her house on the Upper East Side, I'm your girl, okay? I hope you found this informative and entertaining. And I would love to go through this journey with you. Once again, thank you for listening. Feel free to forward it to your friends and your fam. And once again, my name is Jamella Swift, your New York City real estate agent with Keller Williams, NYC. Talk to you soon.